Let's make some rosettes. I want to show you some practice or some ones that have already been done. Some beautiful rosettes. Now this is just a decoration around the sound hole. This is where the air, the sound escapes from. Right? Strings come across here, you pluck it, vibrates the soundboard, goes into the box, makes vibration, and then the sound comes out the hole. So there's multiple ways of having sound come out, and you can have various types of holes or escape areas, but most of them are very traditional, is to have this ring around it, and then often decorated with some kind of purfling here. So notice this one, same idea. We have a piece of veneer ring and then this purfling that is black, and then embedded with another pearl. This one is just another example, same thing but a different variation, this time with epoxy colored inlay. So I'm going to set these aside and let me show you how we're going to practice this type of inlay. This board kind of walks you through the process. Much like a freehand inlay, only we're using a little different tooling. First we cut out the ring out of a piece of veneer, and we do it on a substrate, some kind of board. Then we'll excavate where it's going to go, in this case on a practice board, but later on your soundboard. Then you glue the ring in so that it's flush. And then, if you wish, you can put this purfling around each side of the ring. Now we won't go this far with the practice, we'll only go to there. This is your inlay practice board. Mine's all nice and clean, but it doesn't have to be. Even if you've got inlay all over this, you can just inlay this into the board as well. And we're going to cut it out from a piece of cherry, because cherry is nice and stable, cuts well, glues well, it's magical. So let's glue this piece down using spray adhesive. This is nothing more than rubber cement in aerosol form. I'm going to spray the lower half. We're going to cut it out on this side and then we'll glue it in on that side. Do this over a garbage can so you don't get this glue everywhere. Give it about 10 seconds to dry. We want the glue to stay on this board and not transfer to our rosette, if possible. Excellent. Okay, now let's talk about that ring and its size. Here's the template for the sound hole. In the front of your guitar, the rosette diameter is 3 15/16 from there to there. Now that's kind of a quirky size, I think, because it's probably been converted from a metric measurement. So it's almost 4 inches, but it's not. And the location of this sound hole is 5 7/8. You'll need to know this later when you go to do your actual rosette. From the top to the center of that hole is 5 7/8. We're going to find the center here and drill a hole, and find a center there to drill a hole, in which we are going to be able to put this pin called a trammel pin, and that's where we're going to rotate our Dremel and trammel. this is 6 inches wide. So I'm just going to go to the center. 3. And 3 up. Same thing on this side. And go 3. 3. Now let's talk a little bit about our tooling that we're going to be using. You're used to this Dremel and the base, and this thing is called a trammel, T-R-A-M-M-E-L. The trammel is just a device that spins the bit in a circular motion, and the trammel pin sits right in there, locks it in place, and that gives us our circular motion. So we need a 3/16 hole from which this can fit. We're going to do that at the drill press. Here at the drill press, we can create a 3/16 hole with a 3/16 twist bit, which has been mounted into the drill press. And the depth of this is adjusted by these 2 bars. So by moving it up, it'll go much deeper. We don't need to go that deep. But go about 3/4 of the way through your board, and then push that button, and it'll drop. You can also turn it to adjust it. It just takes a little bit longer. Staying 5 for 5 away and just hit your mark. That fits just right. Very good. Okay. So back to our size. That's the center. Now I'm going to do a little measuring here, and let's measure where the sound hole will be. The radius is just under 2 inches if the diameter is almost 4. So I'm just putting this on 3. Don't let me confuse you. I could be doing this too, starting it from 0. And I'm going to mark it just under 2 inches. And that is not critical right now, that size. I just want you to get a feel for how big this ring is going to be. Now after the sound hole, I want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of border, and then I want to make my rosette ring about 1/2. Of course, when you're doing the real thing on your soundboard, do whatever size you want. But for this practice, let's go 1/8 in and then another 1/2. So I'm going to mark that here. I'm going to go another 1/8 and then another 1/2. That is where our rosette ring is going to go. And it's going to go all the way around. In fact, I want to show you what one of these looks like. That's a rosette ring right there, and we're going to be cutting this out of the veneer just like that. Okay, so I put my trammel pin through the hole there and then into, or maybe the reverse would be better. And I'm going to line up the bit inside here with my marks. Hard to see. Now there is a light on these if you're so lucky to have one. I undo this, and then by changing this, and some of our trammels don't have this device, you just shift it back and forth, and I'm going to set the bit so that it's just inside of my line, and I will pull this off and show you what I mean. That's what I'm doing. Okay, that's going to be the inside, and then lock it in. Okay, so I'm setting it so that the bit sits right there, just inside the rosette ring line. First I'll set it there and go all the way around. Then I'll reset the bit to right there and go all the way around, thereby leaving the rosette ring. Now, a word about the depth of the bit, which we haven't set yet. When we cut it out, I want it to go a little bit deeper than this because I want to make a mark in this board. That's so that I can set it properly when I move to here. When I start excavating, I'm going to have to change my depth to exactly the same thickness so that when it's glued in, it's perfectly flush. But while we cut it out, let's just make it a little bit deeper. Now these bases, right, you just twist those two balls there and notice how it plunges up and down. There's also a adjustment pin here. I want you to look at that barrel as I twist. Notice how that moves up and down. So I can use that as a means as I plunge, and that can make contact right there and stop at a particular spot. We may use that likely in the future. For now, what I'm going to do is set up my trammel on top of the veneer, plunge this so that it goes all the way down, and I see that I have to back that off a little bit. So the bit is striking the wood here. So essentially I'll be making it almost the same depth as the veneer because the base is on the veneer and the bit is coming down and hitting the wood next to it. Now that's about the same thickness. Now I'm going to use the adjustment pin and I'm looking right there. And I don't know if you can see the slight adjustment that I have. That's touching right now, and I bring it off about 1/64 of an inch. So there's a little bit of space. Now I'm going to plunge the Dremel down until that pin touches there. And that'll give me just a little bit more depth. That should be good. Set it on my trammel pin, and as I start it, I'm lifting it slightly. I think I better plug in so that I don't start it while it's engaged. So I'm lifting it, starting it, and dropping it down in. A lot of little crumbs that's leaving. Okay, you can see that I've cut off my mark. So now I'm going to adjust the bit out to there and cut the outer portion of the ring. And I'm going to do it by visual. So I loosen up that. And I'm turning the adjustment knob here so that it shifts it out until the edge of the bit is touching my mark on the outer ring. And that looks pretty good right about there. I'll lock it in, raise it slightly. second cut. Lots of burrs on there I'm scraping away. Now I just have to remove it from the board. A couple of options here. I can use a chisel and pull it off. In some places that works pretty well, others it's glued down a little heavier. I do have some fear of breaking this. If you have any qualms at all, you can use some lacquer thinner. The lacquer thinner it dissolves the glue and it'll just pop off no problem. Say that I didn't quite get it all the way through there. Breaking off that portion that didn't quite make it. And that lacquer thinner will dry very quickly. We also need to take all of this off. That ring just pop up, no problem.